That one Owanga, guys. So, just scrolling around the internet here, and I see this. I see this headline, this clickbaity headline. 45 years later, Star Wars finally confirms Yoda was wrong about the Empire Strikes Back Force visions. I haven't read this yet, but I was like, you know what? This could make for an interesting discussion. So I figured I would turn the camera on and see what it's all about. So here's what the article says. Uh, 45 years after The Empire Strikes Back, Star Wars has finally explained how Force visions really work. Okay. When Luke Skywalker headed to Dagobah, he had no idea what to expect. He didn't even recognize Grandmaster Yoda when he first met him. Well, that's because he didn't know who he was. Because he was looking for a mighty warrior. Instead, he found a sage mystic who was willing to teach him the mysteries of the Force. Okay. These mysteries culminated in an exercise in which Yoda encouraged Luke to seek visions from the Force. Oddly enough, Yoda never expected Luke to act on these visions. Maybe. Okay. I think he instead wanted to use them to spur Luke on in becoming a Jedi by recognizing the dangers of attachment. But how do Force visions really work? That's been largely a mystery ever since. I don't think it's been a mystery, but the truth has just been revealed in Justina Ireland's new novel Wayseeker, which stars Jedi Master Vernestra Rwoh. Oh, Jesus fucking Christ. Okay, now it's all starting to make sense. All right, first of all, where did it say it here? It said something about how do Force visions really work. That's been largely a mystery ever since. No, it hasn't. Like this is literally like what the prequels are about. Like 2 out of 3 movies in the prequels are about a Jedi having a vision and then him like it's it's not a mystery. They certain Jedi can see the future. Not all of them even can, but certain Jedi can see the future, and sometimes we make the vision happen inadvertently. But okay, let's keep going because this is going to get really interesting because look at who we have here. Okay. A major character in Lucasfilm's High Republic books, Vernestra Rwoh was played by Rebecca Henderson in The Acolyte. One of the most notable Jedi Masters of her time, Vernestra, or Vern, as she's or Vern, as she's sometimes called, possesses a unique connection to the Force. This means she tends to slip into Force visions while in hyperspace. Like, how is that a unique connection to the Force? She tends to slip into Force visions while in hyperspace. Like hyperspace brings it on, and that's the only time it happens. I don't read these fucking High Republic books. I guess that's what they're trying to say is that maybe hyperspace brings it on. Experiencing glimpses of the past, present, future. Okay, yeah, that's what a vision is. Wayseeker even hints that she may have foreseen Order 66 by decades. Of course, she would have seen it. Troubled by her visions, Vern has spent some time studying the meditations of past Jedi on the subject of visions. Here's her conclusion. One of the things no one ever tells you is how contrary visions can be. Every single aspect of the scene had been cobbled together by my brain. I knew that. I had read up on Force visions, and the majority of scholars believed that they were nothing more than the brain reading fluctuations and variations in the Force, ripples created by upheaval somewhere in the timeline of the galaxy. Given the frequency of my visions, I've even spent years with various Jedi scholars trying to understand how best to use what I saw in an organized manner, but every effort failed. My vision seemed to work in a logic that defied explanation, as so many things relating to the Force often did. Okay, there's a lot of like talking here, not saying a whole lot. I had concluded that it was not for me to understand how visions worked, but rather to and accept they existed and use them to the best of my ability. It was the easiest way to keep from going mad. Okay. Vern's explanation of force visions fits well with what we know that they are generated by an individual's own mind responding to some upheaval in the past, present, or future. Okay, true. Yes. Uh, stated much simpler and better than those 2 paragraphs of wordy nonsense. This explains the visions of Jedi Master Sifo Dyas, whose own visions of the Clone Wars led him to commission a clone army in hopes that they would save the Jedi. Yes, okay. Fits with Luke's own visions in Empire Strikes Back, where he saw what was about to happen to his loved ones. Okay, so I guess here's where we get to the title. Vern would have approved of Luke's Empire Strikes Back's decisions. She'd have considered Yoda wrong. Okay. Vern's experience with visions is striking, though, in that she'd have disagreed completely with Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back. He seems to have wanted Luke to experience a vision so he could choose to step back and allow events to progress, whereas Vern believed it was her responsibility to act on what she saw in a vision. The 2 Jedi Masters had very different philosophies. Vern believed in getting involved and trusting the will of the Force to act, while Yoda insisted on the necessity of caution. Well, first of all, okay, let's stop for a second. Getting involved in something that could be inevitable or whatever is not trusting in the will of the Force. That's not trusting in the will of the Force. What Yoda is saying is trust in the will of the Force, because Yoda tells Luke always in motion is the future. It's always changing. One little thing you do could change the course of events, and it's difficult for him to see. Almost every time in the saga, when they ask Yoda about Anakin's future, Palpatine, do you think this is going to really come to war? Luke, will they die? Like, Yoda doesn't know the answer. He almost never knows the answer. He always says it's clouded. Right? And then here, she disagreed completely with Yoda in The Empire Strikes Back. 2 Jedi Masters had 2 very different philosophies. Well, I wonder why. Could it be that Yoda's experienced this before? Like, he's seen this wreak havoc on, the whole fucking galaxy. Like, so there's this really, really important Jedi. Like, you guys may have heard of him. His name's Anakin fucking Skywalker. And he has a vision about his wife dying, and he becomes so obsessed with it and tries to change it from happening that he actually causes it to happen. Maybe Yoda was thinking about that, the little event that like fucked up everything for everybody. And maybe that's why he was saying to Luke, like, hey, like, no, don't chase this thing. I mean, Yoda's message to Luke in that scene, Luke asks him, am I supposed to sacrifice Han and Leia? And Yoda says, if you honor what they fight for, yes. He's saying if you believe in what they're doing and you honor them and they believe in what they're doing, then yeah, like you risk that. We don't know if that's what's going to happen, but yeah, you're taking that risk. If you're actually going to honor what they're doing, and he goes on to tell him, if you leave now, you could help them, but you could sacrifice everything that they've fought for and suffered for. Meaning, if you leave and you sacrifice your training and your ability to become a Jedi, what they're fighting for, you're giving up. They're fighting like for the defeat of the Empire. They're fighting for freedom. That requires you to become a Jedi. So if you leave, you're sacrificing what they're actually trying to accomplish. Like, it wasn't just a matter of, oh, chase the vision, don't chase the vision. Like, Yoda was seeing the big picture. It wasn't about just let it play out. It was about seeing the big picture and weighing the options of what those consequences could be should he follow that vision. So let's see what the end of this is. I think this is the last paragraph. Yeah. The difference goes further than that, though, because these contrasting philosophies say something about the will of the Force itself. Yoda believing in submitting to the Force's will and thus not trying to change the future. Vern believed that the Force had projected something to her for a reason and thus wished her to act. Luke's example in The Empire Strikes Back likely proved Vern right, because Luke learned the path about his father, and the redemption of the Chosen One became possible as a result of his actions. That is the biggest stretch I've ever heard in my life. Like, Luke chased that and suffered for it, so he got his ass kicked, got himself killed, like subjected himself to the dark side when he wasn't ready to confront that type of power, saying that it was also he could learn about his father. That's not that's crazy. So I guess the title here, Star Wars finally confirms Yoda was wrong about the Empire Strikes Back Force visions. Like, doesn't this doesn't confirm shit? Why do people write stuff like this? Like, this doesn't confirm anything. Vern believed the Force had projected something to her for a reason and thus wished her to act. Yeah, like Anakin. Like, it's you're writing right in here that this Vern character is the one who's doing shit wrong. Like, Yoda is believing in submitting to the Force's will and not trying to change the future. Yeah, I don't know. I don't get it. Um, I don't I don't know. I never read this book, so I don't know if the author of the book was really trying to convey this, or if it's just like if it's the character that's like, oh, that's what they believe, and that's the reason they believe that's the reason they have visions. Then fine, that's fine. That's fine. Like, a character doesn't always have to be correct, right? The character can be wrong, but saying that, like, this doesn't debunk anything. And like, here's the issue with this kind of stuff, right? Is that, how come all the new characters that they create, whether they're coming before the originals or after the originals, like, it's for some reason it's always about new characters debunking the old legacy characters. Like, why can't the new characters stand on their own 2 feet and have their own accomplishments? I don't get it. It's just, this article is doing the same thing that, like, the Last Jedi does, when Luke is saying that he was, like, flawed and he was wrong, and, oh, I thought I could do this because I was Luke Skywalker. Like, we already saw Luke's flaws. We already saw his flaws in the original trilogy, his recklessness, his impatience, his anger. Like, we saw all that stuff. He's past that point already. Like, he's a developed character. Same with Yoda. We know Yoda's flaws. If you're watching the saga the way Lucas intends it, which is beginning to end, we already know that his failure was to the Jedi Order. His failure was that he was blinded by fear, and it didn't allow him to see how flawed the Jedi were. So he's past all of that already. Like, by the time Luke gets to him in Empire, this is someone we should be learning from. But then they have to introduce this other character who comes thousands of years before to pretty much, like, debunk what Yoda is saying. Like, it's like the only way they can make strong characters is by knocking down the legacy characters, or characters that already have an arc and have already learned and have already failed and then succeeded and failed again and succeeded again. Like, it's like the only way they can actually make it happen. I don't understand why they can't just have these characters have their own feats and their own struggles, and then let them lean on that. It seems to always come back to knocking other characters down. It's almost like knocking somebody down to make yourself look better. Like, the characters aren't strong enough to stand on their own, so they have to prove other characters wrong. And again, I don't know if the book is actually saying that, or if it's just a crappy writer writing a crappy article. But people see it and they're like, they believe it. They see the headline, they read it, and they're like, oh, well, and that's creating animosity that might not even be there. Like, this writer might not have even written it that way, but then, like, we're spreading that word throughout the interwebs, and putting the fandom in the fucked up state that it's in, where they hate the franchise because they think it's being torn apart, and whether it is or isn't, like, I don't know the intention of the actual writer of that book, but I don't know. I don't understand that. All right, well, just something quick and fun to nerd out about here. So I'll see you guys in a day or so. Catch you next time.